It was a stupid thing to do, I admit it, but I was just so angry. Angry at the teachers and my classmates for enabling it, even encouraging it. At myself for never standing up. Not that it would have done me any good. He was stronger and faster than me, and that's not counting his quirk. But yeah, most of all I was angry at Kachan. Bakugo Katsuki, my supposed friend. He had always been rough, but after he got his quirk, he got worse. Everyone praised him, no one stopped him. I knew I would never be a hero. I wanted it, studied for it. But I was quirkless. In a world where 80% of the people had powers, and that number was growing every day, I was abnormal. Subpar. Even if I tried the other route, learning martial arts and acrobatics, I just didn't have the genes for it. No amount of exercise would increase my height. And there was no way I could build up the necessary muscle, not without some kind of drug. Maybe if I had started years before. Still, I couldn't let it go. I watched heroes and villains, learned their quirks, figured out their weaknesses and limits, and strategies to take them down. Also their untapped potential, ways they could have used their powers, but didn't. I even had a ranking system, based on an old game book from before powers were real. It wasn't perfect, but it gave me a structure to work on and good estimates. Kakan got angry again, because I had put down that I wanted to go to UAA. Wanted to be a hero. Only this time, he took my latest hero notebook. He blew it up with his power, and then threw it out the window, into the koi pond. When I fished it out, saw it, it was like everything from the last 10 years just bubbled up. Exploded out. You might think that was me explaining how my amazing quirk suddenly manifested. It wasn't. No, I just got mad and punched the cement barrier around the pond. Full on with my right hand as hard as I could. Like I said, stupid, I didn't think I had broken anything. But the knuckles on my first 2 fingers split and bled freely. The rest of my hand was all scuffed up, and it hurt like hell. Tears spilled from my eyes, the physical pain matching the hurt in my heart. All I could do was wrap my hand as best I could in my handkerchief, and then trudge home. Izuku? Honey? My mom cried out when she saw the blood dripping from my hand. She hurried over and drew me gently to the table. Mom quickly got the first aid kit. I always wondered if she had been a nurse, the way she treated my injuries. Or had she just gotten so good taking care of me? What happened? She asked softly. Bullies, I said evasively. With my dad away all the time, it was just her and me. We were close and I couldn't lie to her. But at the same time, I wasn't going to rat out my friend. She looked shocked and I quickly clarified, not like that. He threw my notebook in the pond, and when I saw it, I got mad and I punched the barrier. Oh, Izuku, she consoled me, as she finished cleaning my cuts and began wrapping them. Mom? I asked carefully, do you think it is okay for me to try to go to UA? I didn't mention becoming a hero. It was an unspoken thing between us. She regretted her reactions after we found out I was quirkless, and she worried about me. UA had other areas of study, like costuming and technology for heroes, and legal and promotional studies to support them. We both pretended that I would be happy in one of those classes. Izuku. I'm not going to tell you that you can do anything, she said firmly. Even All Might can't fly, or move things without touching them. She illustrated that by pulling the scissors out of the box with her own power. But that doesn't mean you can't try. That you shouldn't try. You should follow your dream as far as you want to. There we go. She taped down the last bandage. After dinner and homework, I had tried to play the Nippon hero Musou. I was hoping to finally get All Might up to level 100. I'm sorry to say I had been maining Mount Lady, for the long reach of her normal attacks, and Present Mike, for his omnidirectional specials. But now I had enough materials for all of All Might's badges, so I wanted to unleash his full power. Unfortunately, with the pain in my hand and the bandages in the way, I couldn't play very well. So I ended up going to bed early. Have you ever woken up and been caught thinking your dream was real? That you were late for school or aliens were invading? At first I thought that was what was happening to me. I opened my eyes, only to see a familiar notification screen hovering in front of me. It didn't match any specific game. If anything, it looked more like the yellow boxes from Dad's old American comics. You have had a proper meal and a good night's sleep. Health and energy fully restored. That what I get for playing games while on Tylenol, I muttered, waving a hand before my face before wiping the sleep out of my eyes. The box obligingly vanished. I levered myself out of bed. Normally at this point I would have been stifling a yawn or even hitting snooze. But today I felt really good, alert, and energized. And the normal morning chill didn't seem to bother me either. I skipped my robe and went out to the kitchen. "Good morning, Izuku." My mom looked a bit surprised. "How is your hand?" "Pretty good so far," I told her. I flexed my fingers to show her. "That's good," she smiled. "If you have any pain later, be sure to go to the nurse." "I will." After wolfing down my breakfast, which earned me another odd look, I went into the bathroom to clean up. I washed my face, ran a comb through my hair in vain, brushed and flossed. Then I rinsed with mouthwash. I closed my eyes when I spit it out, having learned that minty spray in the eyes was not a pleasant feeling. And when I opened them again, "You have taken good care of your teeth. Skill oral hygiene, unlocked. I blinked at it. I definitely wasn't waking up anymore. It stayed there, hovering right in between me and the mirror. I reached out to touch it and my hand passed right through it, but it stayed in place. I noticed the little X in the upper right corner and tried to tap it. There no sensation, but this time the message disappeared. "I'm going crazy," I told my reflection. "Either that, or someone in the building has a hologram quirk and is messing with me." It didn't answer, which I took as a good sign. I was used to pranks, some of which could be really elaborate, depending on the powers involved. But I didn't have time to worry about it now. I had to get to school. "You are on guard and looking for information. Skill analyze, 1DL1, unlock.t." I was watching for whoever might be doing this. And just in general for Kakan or his groupies. But even though I let the window hang out for a few minutes, no one else on the street reacted. It seemed like I was the only one who could see it. "You are paying close attention to the lesson. Skill Mathematics Basic, LVL1, Unlock. You have gained 2 new wit skills in one day. Wit 1. If it was a prank, whoever it was either in my school or had a really long range. But a new suspicion was forming in me, and a new hope. I pushed it down and kept listening. "You are trying, poorly, to avoid the getting hit. Skill dodge, 1, unlock.to. I would have thought I had that one already. Hooray dodgeball. I wonder if I could get my hands on the ball, if I could unlock a throw skill or something like that. You have made a good guess based on available information. Intuition 1. If this was a prank, it had to be some form of telepathy quirk. You are paying close attention to the lesson. Skill Chemistry Basic, Vel 1, Unlock. You have gained 3 new wit skills in one day. Wit 2. You are paying close attention to the lesson. Skill Creative Writing, Li1, Unlock. You have gained 2 new charisma skills in one day. Charisma 1. By the time lunch rolled around, I wasn't sure if I was more confused or annoyed. But I was also finally ready to consider that thrid option. "So I could be crazy," I mumbled. "Or it could be a prank. Or maybe, just maybe, it could be that I finally gained my quirk. It's not impossible." After all, Jobs, the fruit hero, didn't discover his power until he was 16, because his dad was so allergic to apples. But then what happened to trigger it? Nothing out of the order happened yesterday. I've been hurt before, I've played games before. Dinner wasn't anything strange. And wouldn't it make more sense if I had just finally had too much and snap? That happened to a lot of kids in America before they passed those laws. I should be glad I don't have access to a gun, but if I was going crazy, would it be like? I was cut off when a pencil hit my forehead. "Cut it out, you shitty nerd!" Bakugo roared at me. I suddenly realized I had actually by thinking out loud. Again. Fortunately, the pencil was a light plastic one, and hit me eraser first. So, it didn't break the skin. My eyes widened as I thought that, and remembered the first message. I quickly dug my thumbnail under the tape and pulled off the bandage on my right pointer finger. It was clean. No blood, no scab, not even a scar. I glanced around and realized since I had shut up, no one was looking at me anymore. I peeled off the rest of the cloth and tape as quickly as I could and stuffed it in my pocket, only vaguely noticing that pulling the tape off didn't even sting. My right hand was unmarked, like the stupid punch yesterday had never happened. Hindsight being 20/20, I recognized that my lack of injuries could just have easily been part of the hallucination or trick. But by that logic, I could have imagined everything since. Or I could just be a manga character. I can only accept the reality I have, especially when everyone else seems to share it. I could barely believe it. I have a quirk, I said as softly as I could, not wanting anyone to know before I could be sure. I had originally planned to linger around town, on my way home, hoping to see heroes in action. Especially since the news said All Might was back in Musutafu. Instead, I rushed home as quickly as I could. I beat Mom home, which was good. I wasn't ready to explain my hand. Not yet. Not until I was sure. I got changed into comfortable clothing. I sat down at my desk. My computer still off. I took a deep breath. Then I said the word that would change my life. Status. Another of the screens appeared. This one noticeably larger. Name: Izuku. Midoriya Da'awe. Race: human, quirk metagene negative. Age: 14. Level: 2. Active. Title: The Gamer. There was more, a lot more. But what got my attention was the race. Human, of course. But quirk metagene negative. Did that mean I didn't have a quirk after all? Was this really just a trick? Or was it something else? I considered that for a while. I also glanced quickly through the other tabs. In fact, I jumped back and forth between them as fast as I could, hoping to trip up my own brain or whoever might be tricking me. But it failed. The screens always said the same thing as the last time, and shifted immediately. You have conducted a logical experiment to try to disprove a hypothesis. Wit 1 Doan. Another screen appeared in front of my status. I quickly closed it, staring at my attribute that had just increased. Could this really be real? But if it wasn't a quirk, then just what was it? Izuku, honey, my mom called out gently from the other side of the door. It was her worried voice. Had I dropped the bandages? Izuku, can I come in? She said again. We really need to talk. Sure, Mom, I told her, and left the screen up to test if Mom could see it. She opened the door, and I could see she had been crying, but had tried to dry her eyes. Mom, I said nervously, what's wrong? It's about Bakugu-kun, she said. There's been a villain attack. That was both the best and worst day of my life, and the start of my path to being the greatest hero in the world. A path I walked for both myself and my fallen friend. Current status. Name: Izuku Midoriya. Tai. Race: human, quirk metagene negative. Age: 14. Level: 2. Active title: The Gamer. Health: 15. Energy: 43. Attributes: S. Strength: 3. Agility: 4. E. Endurance: 3. Q. Weakness: 3. WIT: I. Intuition: 14. Charisma: 5 Taurus. Determination: 6. L. Uck: 1. Unused points. Attribute: 9. Skill: 3. Talent: 1. Skills: Modern Tech. Computer Gaming, WA, 14. Japanese Language, WC, 11. English Language, WC, 40. Scientific Method, WI, 6. Author's Note. Fair warning, this one's... The funeral for Bakugu Katsuki was held 3 days later. It was pretty much an emotional roller coaster for me. I was sad, of course. Kakan was my first friend. Even if things had been strained between us over the last decade or so, I still considered him as more than just a classmate. And then there were his parents. Of course they felt terrible. And while I didn't know Bakugu-san that well, Mitsuki Oba-san had always been good to me. So I felt bad for them. I was mad, of course, mostly at that villain, but it was dead, burned to ash by Endeavor. Kakan hadn't been hurt by his flames. It was already too late. Kakan had suffocated and also been partially digested. Unfortunately, there was more to it than that. See, the school had offered our grade the afternoon off, so we could attend the funeral. Almost everyone took them up on the offer, but only one of them showed up. The quiet, blue-haired girl from the class next door. I didn't know her name and didn't feel comfortable approaching her. I wasn't sure how she was connected to Kakan. Had she liked him, hate and feared him, or was she just that respectful? I tried to give the others some credit. Maybe it was just too hard for them. I know in their place, Kachan would have gone to the arcade, not able to admit to his feelings, or face his own mortality through the death of a classmate. I still couldn't help but think that they should have shown up. I was happy, surprisingly, not that Kachan was dead. No, it was because my dad's company actually agreed to fly him back for the funeral, so I got to see him for once. Even better, some heroes came. Mount Lady, Kamui Woods, and Death Arms all came. They all apologized to Kakan's parents for failing to save him. Endeavor was too busy to come, but sent a representative from his agency to offer his regrets. Years later, I learned that that was a lie. Endeavor didn't even know Kakan's name, or bother to learn when the funeral was. His daughter, the representative, did it all on her own. Both Mom and Mitsuki Oba-san were inconsolable. That didn't stop them from trying to comfort each other, which only seemed to make things worse. It hurt me to see them like that. Mitsuki Oba-san, I said, edging slowly closer to the sobbing ladies. Both moms turned to look at me, as did Bakugu-san. I stuttered. Then I took a breath and steeled myself. Kakan and I both had the same dream, to get into UA and become heroes. His dream was even greater, to be the #1 hero, while I would have been happy just to make it in. But not anymore. From now on, I'm going to work even harder. Hard enough for both of us. And I will become the #1 hero. For both of us. I'm sure Katsuki-kun would have been very happy to hear that, Bakugu-san told me kindly. Really? I blinked. I thought he would have called me stupid deku, and yelled that I would never surpass him. Ha! Mitsuki Oba-san barked a laugh, smiling for the first time that afternoon. That does sound more like our son. Deku? Kakshin's dad copied me. Did he call you that? Yeah, I nodded with a sheepish grin. It's another way to read my name. And he said it fit me because I was like a deku, wooden doll. Cheap, empty, practically worthless, and unable to do anything on my own. He flinched at that, and the moms exchanged glances. You know that brat was never good at expressing himself. Mitsuki Oba-san told me with fake levity. He probably just never thought to mention the other side. Other side? I prompted, confused. Yes, she said firmly, clamping her hands on my shoulders. Because you are empty, that means you can be filled up. Just like you can paint a blank wooden doll to be a hero, or an anime character, you can become anything. I think deep down, Katsuki believed that, and I believe you will become a hero. I didn't miss how my mom turned away, so I wouldn't see the look on her face. Congratulations. You have read the entire basic manual. Seriously, who does that anymore? Wit, 3. Endurance, 2. Determination, 2. Japanese language skill. Improved, LVL, 12. If I was going to use my power, live up to Mitsuki Oba-san's expectations, and become the #1 hero, I needed to know everything about my power. Fortunately, like all good games, it came with instructions. There were 10 tabs when I called up the interface. Status, inventory, skills, talents, party, and use system were all visible and active. There was one concealed tab between inventory and IA skills, and 3 of them between L party and Yoa system. Unfortunately, system did not include a save function. It did let me turn on a customizable heads-up display, which I played around with a bit before turning it off. Seeing a floating display of my health was a little disconcerting, and a little morbid. I could also choose from a couple of styles for the interface windows, and change the interface language. Most importantly, there was the manual. Status was a list of my current abilities. It was also where I could spend saved-up points to improve my attributes. Just as a test, I put one more point into luck, not wanting to have the lowest possible value. Speaking of attributes, there were a number of ways I could improve them. Just by naturally doing things associated with them, they would go up. More the harder I worked. Except for luck, apparently, another reason I put a point into it. The second way was just as obvious. Every time I leveled up, I got 7 points to spend. Other people only got 5, which was a benefit of my power. Similarly, I got 3 skill points per level, instead of 2. And while most people got 1 talent point every 3rd level, I got them every 3rd level, and every 5th level too. Except for multiples of 15, then one of the 2 talent points was delayed a level. Anyway, as I did with luck, I could spend my points freely, improve any attribute or skill I wanted without even trying. According to the manual, other people only spent their points subconsciously. I could also improve my attributes by unlocking certain talents. And there was a 4th method, but it was hidden. Inventorying showed what I was wearing and using, equipment if you will, and also let me store a small number of items in an extra-dimensional space. I only had 10 blocks of storage in a 2x5 grid. But small items could stack in some cases. Both a handful of pencils and 3 of my hero notebooks only took 1 block, but each of my school books took up one of its own. My desk chair took 4 blocks, and even when I took everything else out, I couldn't store my bed. Skills gave a deep explanation of the skills I had. It also showed new skills I could unlock, with basic descriptions. I could spend points to buy or improve any of those skills. Also, like attributes, I could improve skills by using them. There were also skill books, which I could use to improve or unlock a skill, but the book would be consumed in the process. It seemed my chemistry book qualified, but I wasn't going to destroy school property. There was a grayed out way to improve my skills, too. The Skills tab also showed skills I was close to being able to unlock, along with the prerequisites. As well as dozens of grayed out skills I was either not close to or would never be able to unlock. Talency was much the same, what I have and what I could get. Except that talents could not be improved, they were one and done. And the only way to get them was to spend points or use the hidden method. My talents themselves were a bit more interesting. Studious simply gave me a constant bonus to improve my wit and intuition, as well as any associated skills. Gamer's Body let me heal almost anything with a good meal and 8 hours of sleep. There were some status ailments it could not cure, and those might block my healing. It also reduced feelings of pain and fatigue. Finally, it gave me a single energy pool instead of separate pools for stamina, mana, ki, and science. My energy was only equal to the 2 highest pools I would have normally had, but since I could freely use it for anything, it was a decent trade-off. Except magic. I had purchasable talents for psychic powers and ki powers, but nothing for magic. Maybe it wasn't real, or maybe they were just talents I couldn't access yet. Either way, all 3 of them required me to buy talents before I could start using the skills. And I was carefully considering which one to buy first. Gamer's Minda made me immune to mundane fear, confusion, surprise, etc. Basically, I wouldn't freeze up in battle. It also gave me resistance to mental status ailments from quirks. Or, I guess, other powers like mine, if they existed. It also protected me from survivor's guilt, PTSD, and similar mental issues. That part worried me a bit, but I quickly got over it. Party was just like it sounded. I could invite up to 4 people into my party. If I did so, they would get access to their own EA status, skills, and EY talents tabs, as well as more restricted access to the party tab. It also meant we shared any experience points we got, but increased the overall total. That was the other thing that struck me. There were multiple mentions of XP in the book, and both I and my skills had levels. But none of the screens offered me any sort of XP total or gauges. So now what? I mumbled to myself. Obviously I need to train. The UA exams are in 10 months. I'm going to need equipment. And I should see if any of the books in the bookstore will unlock new skills, especially physical ones. And I need to decide if I want to get the first Ki talent or the first psychokinesis tal. I was cut off by a pair of quick, sharp pings, accompanied by pop-up screens. Quest Aller toldest ally tell your mother about the gamer, and convince her to help you attend UA rewards. Advance on your allowance to buy training materials talent, failure penalties. None. However, the reward talents are normally not available until higher levels, and you must purchase them on your own. Time limit, 76 hours. Accept. Decline. I immediately hit accept, having been planning to talk to my mom and ask for an advance anyway. That just made the decision easier. But the second screen made me shiver. Mandatory quest, alert the path of a hero gain, entrance to UA Academy, in the hero course. Rewards. 100,000 XP 5 bonus skill, points to bonus talent, point failure penalties. Immediate and permanent loss of the gamer time limit. 314 days. Accept. I did some quick math in my head. Calculated a future date. 1 wit, mathematics, basic skill improved. AVL2? 314 days. 1 week after the UA entrance exams. One shot or I would lose my power, forever. Then, as I watched, the clock ticked over to midnight, and the counter went down to 313. I hit the accept button, and then went to bed. Tomorrow was Saturday, so I would have time to talk to my mom then. But before I fell asleep, I checked something on instinct, and got another one intuition for it. The blank tab between Winventory and IA skills said to quest so and was no longer disabled. Current. Status. Name. Izuku Midoriyage. 14 level. 2 active title. The Gamer Health, 1818 Energy, 5252. Attributes. S Strength, 3. Agility, 4. E Endurance, 5. Q Weakness, 3. Webulity 19. I Intuition 15. C Charisma, 5. Determination, 8. Elk 2. Unused points, attribute. 8 skill. 3 talent, 1. Skills. Modern Tech. W. 13 Computer Gaming. WA. 14 Japanese Language. WC. 12 English Language. WC. 4 Scientific Method. WI. 6 Oral Hygiene. C. 3 Analyze. W. On Mathematics. Basic. W2 Dodge. A. On Ecochemistry. Basic. I. On Creative Writing. C1. Talents. Studious Gamer's Body Gamer's Mind. I woke up the next morning and quickly went over certain sections of the manual again, as I tried to figure out what I would tell my mom. Considering her probable counter-arguments, I went over to the bookshelf, took out a specific book, and then stored it in my inventory. Then, it was out to the kitchen. "Good morning, Mom," I said as naturally as I could, except a squeak in my voice ruined it. Then I looked around. "Where's Dad?" I asked. "Oh, she hesitated. "He left last night, caught a red-eye back to America. He has work, you know." "Mom," I prompted gently, "is something going on with Dad? With you and Dad? You two barely talked yesterday, and he left without saying goodbye." "Well, Izuku, honey," she said cautiously, "I guess I should tell you. Your father and I are legally separated." "Legally separated?" I parroted in confusion. "I'm not surprised you don't know about that," she said. "It has only been an option in Japan for about 20 years, and it is still uncommon. It means that while we are still married, we are apart, and we own our possessions individually. And certain other aspects are spelled out in the agreement." "Like me," I asked, softly. She looked down and didn't say anything. It's because of me, isn't it? I realized. No, Izuku. She hurried over and hugged me. It was not your fault. You are not to blame. You should never believe that. Your father and I always burned bright. When we were happy. She blushed, and I tried not to think about it. But even from the beginning when we fought, it was like dynamite, she continued. Mitsuki always said she was surprised we lasted long enough to get married. But what drove you apart, I countered. What made you fight? Was me. There is a school, she said, a school for quirkless children. One where they don't spend time trying to teach you about controlling quirks or about quirk laws. A school where children without powers don't have to be afraid, bullied. For a moment I considered that. But I wasn't that naive. Bullying predated quirks. There is no reason to think that just because the school only had quirkless students, didn't mean they wouldn't find other reasons to torment each other. But that school is near the north shore of Hokkaido, she continued, a boarding school. I didn't want to send you away, not at 5 years old. And there were rumors. I could imagine. Teachers' cruelty was the first thing that came to mind, but even worse. An isolated school, a population with a specific genetic trait. That would be a perfect testing ground, or control group. A few years later, a certain hero agency investigated the school. Not long after, most of the administration and some of the teachers went to prison for a very long time. And the school was shut down. Your father didn't believe the stories. He thought it would be best for you to go there, Mom told me. And I was adamant you stay. So yes, we fought about it. If it hadn't been that, it would have been something else. She looked at my face, and must have seen the doubts. She smiled sadly and said, but the final straw was how I've let myself go, she told me. The second time he came back from America, he looked at me and asked for the separation. That got me out of my funk, making me angry. That's not true, Mom, I told her. There's nothing wrong with you. You are still really pretty. That's kind of you, she said wistfully. Too bad the doctor doesn't agree. She looked at me firmly. Your father is a good man. He takes good care of us. And part of me will always care for him. But no, we are not together anymore. I hugged her again and she returned it. Then she gave me another look. Now, it seemed like you had something you wanted to talk to me about, she said pointedly as she released me. Yes. I scratched the back of my head nervously. It's about what I told Mitsuki Obasan. That was very kind of you, Mom said carefully. But of course. Mom, I have a power, I interrupted her. It happened the Daikatsuki died. Day he died. Just woke up that morning and I just had it. Are you sure? She asked slowly. I held up my right hand. You might have forgot what with everything that happened, I countered. But remember my hand. The split knuckles from punching the barrier? That wouldn't heal in just 4 days, right? She took my hand gently, looked it over. Then she smiled, tearing up. Oh, Izuku. She grabbed me a third time. You have a quirk. What is it? It's not a quirk, I mused out loud. Or at least it says it isn't. What does that mean, Izuku? She looked confused and a little worried. I guess it might be fastest just to show you, I decided. Then I proclaimed firmly. Party invite, Midoriya Inko. Izuku Midoriya has invited you to join his party. Accept. Decline. I noticed that all the messages displayed our names in Western order. My mom looked at the box, nervously. It's okay, Mom, I reassured her. Just hit accept. She did. Now say, statuses? I encouraged her. Status? She said questioningly. The window appeared before her, and I made it a point not to look at it. I explained to her everything I had read in the manual, and had seen for myself. I showed her my own status box, pointing out my quirk metagene negative qualifier. I got into a real roll, but she didn't interrupt me. And health is equal to the sum of your physical attributes. At level 1 plus. Half of your endurance rounded up for each level you gain, I told her. Finally petering out. Izuku. My mom said carefully. Have you thought about this? It might just be a hologram quirk. Responding to your own thoughts and desires. The same thing with your fingers. I had considered that, I agreed, tested it. But what about this? I flipped over to my inventory and took out the book. Handed it to her. Your father gave you this. 2 years ago, she flipped it over, revealing the title, JavaScript 11 for Noobs. It's real, right? I prompted. She nodded, but was holding back a protested that my possible illusion quirk might have concealed it. Hold on to it, tight. I gently placed one finger on the book. This book contains the skills JavaScript S11 and software methodology. Learning them will consume the book. Proceed with learning these skills? Accept? Decline? I hit accept without hesitating. Skill book used. Skill JavaScript S11, while 1, unlocked. Skill software methodology, AVL1, unlocked to Dashi. Mom blinked as the book vanished, leaving a light coating of paper dust on her hands. I blinked because I unlocked what I guessed were both wit-based skills, but my attribute did not improve. Then I looked at her again, and there was still doubt on my mom's face. Okay, I have one last thing to prove this is real. Izuku, honey, she said softly, but I plowed on ahead. I flipped over to the Talents tab and scrolled to one of the 2 talents I had been thinking about buying first. I didn't think Key Initiate would convince Mom that it wasn't just an illusion, so I went instead with Telekinesis, Basic. Then I flipped back over to the skills list. 3 new unlocked skills has jumped to the top, Telekinesis is, TK Attack, and TK Defense. I put my 3 unspent skill points into Telekinesis. Then I looked up at my mom determinedly. I pointed past her into the kitchen. Without touching it, from a good 3 meters away, I turned on the sink. I picked up the dish towel and ran it under the water. I nearly dropped the towel as I turned the water off, then I clumsily wrung out the towel. My energy was draining faster than I would have expected. But I had just unlocked the lowest level talent, and my skill level was really low. All the more reason I needed practice. I unsteadily pulled the damp cloth over to my mom and held it out for her, saying, Sorry, I didn't know using a skill book would be that messy. After she wiped her hands off, I dusted the floor with the cloth, still not touching it. Then I set it next to the sink to add to the laundry later. So, what do you think? I asked nervously, silently praying she believed me. Izuku, she addressed me directly. Why are you going this far? Telling me all this, showing me all this. Even spending those points just to make a point after telling me how rare they are. They might not be that rare, if I can just figure out how to gain XP and level up. I mumbled, but caught myself before I could plunge down my normal speculative rabbit hole. And I was going to buy telekinesis anyway, maybe just not until next level. But why? I grinned sheepishly and scratched the back of my head again. To be honest, I came clean. Part of it is because I got a quest telling me to tell you. And another part of it is, I'm going to ask for an advance on my allowance. I need to train for the UA entrance exam. So I am going to need workout clothing, some training weights, and hopefully I can find some useful skill books at the bookstore. Then I took her hand and squeezed it gently. But mainly, I wanted to tell you. I wanted you to know that this isn't just a lark or a crazy dream. I didn't want you to worry about me getting hurt, and I didn't want to hide anything from you. She just looked at me for a moment. Then she smiled. Tell you what, she said happily, why don't you go get cleaned up and dressed? And we will go out for breakfast to celebrate your quirk, or whatever this is. Then we can go shopping for supplies, but on one condition, or make that too. What's that? I said carefully. First, this is just an advance on your normal allowance, she told me. We are not made of money, unless you have a talent for that hidden somewhere. Not that I know of, I conceded to her joke, yet. That's too bad, she sighed in mock despair. Then she sobered and said, Secondly, you leave me in your party, at least until you have a specific reason to remove me. That way, I can make sure you aren't getting hurt or going overboard. I can do that. I smiled. Then I will help you, she said. You can consider your first quest complete. I whooped, and then kissed her on the cheek. Thanks, Mom, I told her as I darted back to my room. Midoriya Inka watched wistfully as her son hurried off to get ready. His determination filled her with guilt, especially considering his supposedly low value in the named attribute. Plus a small amount of guilt that she had openly looked at his stats, while he avoided looking at hers. When had she started giving up? She had not said a word when her husband asked to put a legal hold on their relationship. She had not been able to comfort her son when reality tried to crush his dream, and she had let her fear and guilt drive her into the kitchen. No, it was even earlier than that. With Izuku out of the room, she flipped back to her talents. She only had 3 with 5 talent points unused. 2 were cooking and first aid. The third was her quirk. Quirk. Gravity pull. That was right, Immediately under it was a quirk. Gravity pull setting, with a brief description. Under that was quirk. Gravity pull 3. Grayed out except for the name. And below that, it branched off into 3 more talents, their details completely obscured. The quirk she just accepted was weak, useless for anything more than mundane tasks, had multiple layers of hidden depths. But she had never known. She had never tried. Inko had just given up, accepted the hand she thought she was holding. "No more," she said softly. "I'm not giving up anymore. For myself and for my son. You have made a firm and heartfelt declaration. Determination 1.del." Inko immediately purchased quirk. Gravity pulled sit. That added more information to the 3rd level, showing her that neither her skill with her quirk nor her related attributes were high enough yet. She went back to the main screen and pumped her intuition and determination both up to 21. "I don't have the skill points," she mumbled, not unlike her son. "So I guess I'll just have to do it the hard way." She pulled the dirty towel over to herself and took it to the hamper. I stepped to the next shelf. I was in the reference section, running my fingers over the spines of the books, seeing which ones triggered my power. It looked like they would be immediately useful. I put them into the basket. If not, or if I didn't qualify to use them yet, I just recorded the name to a list on my phone. "Excuse me." I bowed to a man perusing cookbooks. He had messy hair, a 5 o'clock shadow, and a scar under his right eye. He seemed dangerous, though not like a bad person, so I made sure to be polite. "No, excuse me." He stepped back and watched my ritual. Then I looked at the 2 books he was holding. "I think that one is better," I suggested, the one in his right hand, its counterpart on the shelf having triggered the gamer. "Is that your quirk?" he asked, his voice as rough as his appearance. "Something like that," I said evasively, and hurried on the 2 next display. At the end of the shelf, I saw the Bluette from Kachan's service. She was looking at college entrance books. Not feeling comfortable, and not wanting her to think I was a stalker, I ducked around to the back side of the shelf, which incidentally put me right in line with the main sort of books I was looking for. I only ended up getting 8 new books, out of a list of dozens. I didn't want to be in debt until I graduated from UEA. At the sporting goods store, I immediately selected a trio of tracksuits, based on All Might's bronze, silver, and gold age costumes, respectively. Unfortunately, when it came to training weights, I was at a bit of a loss. I even used the book on muscle training I bought to unlock the strength training skill, hoping it would give me pointers. But in the end, I had to ask the salesperson for advice. A quick-witted young woman, with forearms like Popeye, she asked me about my plans, and then guided me to a modular set with a vest, wrist, and ankle bands. I bought 2 of the sets of weights to attach to them, knowing that I could buy more later. We got home just in time for lunch, and I helped Mom out. Even though I was itching to use the new books and then ponder my new skills and future options. She seemed to sense that, and after we ate, she dismissed me from washing the dishes. Skill book used. Skill basic karate, LVO1 skill book used. Skill boxing, 1 locked, unlocked, dorp skill book used. Skill parkour, VLL1, unlocked, dorp skill book used. Skill mystery basic skill improved, Vol2, JLL2 Tora. OVD, LVL5. I looked at my new skills. Along with strength training I had already gained, I had a set of physical skills I thought would help me train, even if they weren't directly useful in the UA exam. The other 3 were to make it easier to pass this year, so I would need less time to study and have more time to train. Then I checked the attributes associated with my new skills. And like I thought, even though I had gained multiple skills today, for wit, strength, and agility, none of them had improved. Maybe skill books don't trigger that, I mused. Because I'm not actually working on the stat. Like when I unlock the skill by learning it manually. You figured out a minor, intentional gap in the manual. Intuition 1 ta'id. Intentional, right? I noticed the system messages sometimes seem to have a personality. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the ceiling. It was April 29th. The exams were next March, the 1st and 2nd, with results posted on the 8th. And tomorrow, April 30th, my training would begin, in earnest. I packed all 3 tracksuits and my weights into my inventory. Only then did I notice the quest tab blinking. I jabbed the button as quickly as I could. The panel for Oldest Ally was also flashing. I touched it. Quest Oldest Ally complete. Claim the rewards, accept, decline. I suppose there might be a reason to save the rewards for a quest for a specific time. Like maybe to level up at a key moment, but I had no reason to wait. I all but punched accept. Bonus talents received. Inventory to second unlocked. Reflective dungeon unlocked. My eyes widened as I jumped over to the talents tab.